Hi, this is Margaret Maloney, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. Open and honest discussions with wise and skillful teachers about their experiences with life, death, and Buddhism. If you wonder how others on the path have dealt with death and dying and grief, then be sure to listen in. Everybody has a story, a perspective, and a valuable lesson to share. Embrace death, live a full life, and learn how to love impermanence. Because as my dear father used to say, nobody gets out of this alive. I'm so glad that you are here to share Death Dhamma ahas with me, today specifically discussing my conversation with Mary Stancavage. And before we do that, I want to share some exciting news with you. And that news is that my next book is coming to you in September, and it is based on these amazing discussions that we are having on the podcast. And the book is called Sitting with Death, Buddhist Insights to Help You Face Your Fears and Live a Peaceful Life. And it incorporates thoughts that have come up on the various discussions, lessons learned, and more. I am looking forward to sharing that with you, and since I've reached this milestone where I know that it's coming out in September, I wanted to let you know. Now, Death Dhamma ahas based on speaking with Mary Stancavage. There's something that Mary told me. She said that she has a lens that she uses to view the world, to view her life, and that is to have an undefended heart. And what she means is being open to whatever shows up. And perhaps in this case, we can say to who shows up. Because I am a person who showed up. We didn't know each other before we had a chance to discuss death with one another. And she was open to me. I showed up and asked her, and she said, I would love to do this. This is my favorite topic. We'll come back to that. Because she lives life with an undefended heart. And that also means being vulnerable. And certainly, as you listen to Mary speak during her episode on the podcast, she's very calm and very open and really coming from a place of, here's my experience, here's what I've learned. She's not hiding anything, she's not posturing. She is living her lens of having an undefended heart. And that's very refreshing, especially as she points out that we've been taught to armor ourselves, right? We have things, constructs that we put up around ourselves. Maybe when we go to speak to certain people or we go into certain situations, we feel, like to go back to Star Trek, if you'll let me, we put our shields up. But her recommendation is live with shields down. And this reminds me quite a bit of when I spoke with Venerable Karma Lekshe Somo, and she talked about keeping an open heart. It's very important for us, whether we are experiencing grief or just skipping along through life, to really have this openness and to be aware of what arises for us and what we sit with. That's really the path to the peaceful life. Mary has some distinct experiences with death because she has worked as an archaeologist. Really what that helped me realize as she was explaining it to me is that it's one thing to know death. Like she knew death. She was on archaeological digs in the Middle East. She saw ancient skeletons and bodies. That was part of her work. But that's not the same thing as knowing death from your loved one. And that's not the same thing as recognizing or realizing grief. She loves this topic because she, at one point, went through a program that's called A Year to Live. Now she leads A Year to Live. She's done so 8 or 9 times, and this program is all about entering into the scenario of, this is your last year on earth. What are you going to do? And throughout the year in the program, there's really such an opportunity to investigate your feelings around death. So you can handle it, from the emotional aspect and also from some of the practical aspects. Another place where she has her open heart and her vulnerability is she just says that she is a person who has been in recovery, just like Dave Smith was open to us during his discussion on the Death Dhamma podcast. And what that means for her is that her experiences with grief were different. And we will all have different experiences with grief. Hers just happened to be colored through time spent in addiction versus time in recovery. And time spent in addiction meant ignoring, stuffing down the feelings so that they could come back to her later while she sat in meditation. And that is something for us all to think about. We think that, or we like to think about, we can ignore something and we can just go through our lives and deal with something later. But I think when we have those moments where we think, like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, after all, tomorrow is another day, we're not truly thinking it through that tomorrow may come. The day will come where whatever it is we've stuffed down, it's coming up. It's coming up. And a lot of times where it comes up is in meditation. And this is a good thing. I think it also contributes to people's allergy to meditation. I think that I call it an allergy. Some people are allergic to meditation. And it's often when people are allergic to meditation, what they are telling me is they do not like it because when they sit, unpleasant things arise, things they don't want to think about, things that they don't want to deal with. Yes, that is absolutely true. We think we can ignore something. That's not a call to stop meditating. Disclaimer. If you are meditating and you are extremely in distress, then yes, you should bring yourself out of it. And that's a great opportunity to speak with a therapist and an excellent Dharma teacher. But when you sit long enough and the chatter, the endless chatter that goes through your mind, I don't know if I should really be sitting here because I should probably really be putting out the things for dinner, or, oh, I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner, so I should probably be figuring out, or, oh, well, I need to go to the store, or, oh, well, we have leftovers we can heat up. All those chatter things, when you sit and meditate long enough and the chatter stops, that's when it gets interesting, right? And if you remember back to our first Death Dhamma episode, speaking with Noel, he said something. We are human beings, not human doings. When you're sitting there and the stuff comes up, that doesn't mean you have to do something about it. Remember, the undefended heart, the being open, being vulnerable, being with something. We can be with sadness. We can be with grief. We can be with anger. We do not have to be those things. What we feel, what comes up for us when we're sitting on the cushion isn't always a call to action. In fact, mindfulness, the term mindfulness, most of us really look at and understand that being aware, let's be mindful, being mindful of what is arising as I'm meditating. But mindfulness also means being with something. There's a phrase that Mary said to me that I want to share with you now. Standing in deep intimacy with our experience without preference. She's talking about equanimity, right? Deep intimacy with our experience without preference. We don't want to hurt. We don't want to go through grief. We don't want to feel sad. But again, you don't have to be it, and you don't have to treat this like some meditation grief challenge competition. we're not striving to achieve oneness with grief. We are being with grief, and we are seeking to normalize death and grief and sadness in our lives. So instead of stuffing it down and ignoring people who are going through a difficult time in their lives, what if we just let it all out in the open and acknowledge that this is a normal part of life? It is a normal part of life. Every day while you're going about your business, you could be in the store and the person who walks past you could have just lost someone they deeply love, or they could have just received a terminal illness diagnosis, or they could have lost someone 3 months ago and they just walked past their loved one's favorite ice cream and now they're crying. That is all normal stuff. This is how we go through our lives. We don't want to stuff that down and hide it. When we say you don't have to be it and you don't have to strive to achieve oneness with grief, and that it's not some like grief, jumping the grief hurdles competition. It's not about being indifferent. It is about kind of hitting the pause button and observing it. Hitting that pause button. Oh, this is difficult. Oh, this is what it means to be sad. Oh, I'm a little bit angry that this person has left me. Oh, I'm a little bit relieved that I didn't have to go to the funeral. All those things. Just observe it. And I think one of the most important recommendations for life, grieving or not, be kind to yourselves. This has been the Death Dhamma podcast with Margaret Maloney. Thank you for being here. Your reviews and comments are greatly appreciated. And please come find me on margaretmaloney.com. MargaretMeloni. And don't forget to check out Carpooling with Death, How Living with Death Will Make You Stronger, Wiser, and Fearless. Available in all your favorite formats over on Amazon. And most importantly, may you be well. May you be happy. May you be safe, at ease, and free from suffering. Bye for now.